welcome back to another video. Hope you're all doing well today. I didn't know if this day would ever come, if I'm being completely honest with you. This is TFC's kind of it's Nationals bundle is what I would call it. This has been in the works for the last 2 years, literally since I very first started playing MX bikes. And it got to the point where I just thought it was a myth, it was a legend, because each year we kept playing like the same old tracks and before kind of the aerial team started making them. And this is finally here and I'm so excited for it. What you will be watching in the background as I'm talking through this is just one fairly solid lap, because I'm pretty washed, I'm going to go for like world record pace anytime soon. Fairly decent lap of each and every track, there being 12 in total. And in the top left of the screen you'll see what each round is, and it's worth mentioning that these tracks haven't got their proper track names, and they've rather got the locations that said tracks are in, purely for the reason it's probably very legal. With them being on the shop and selling it, you don't want any kind of copyright stuff going on. So very smart move on that behalf. I rate it. Very good idea. Round one right here, we have got Rancho Cordova, aka Hangtown, and a lot of these tracks, I'll be honest, I actually found them really easy. Having a quick read through on the MX Bike Shop post, that seems to be that was kind of the theme that he was going for. He's gone for more of like a off-season / local type thing, like more of an amateur day that you'd see, rather than the super deep, gnarly rutted out pro rounds that you would get. And whilst these might not always be at the very top of my ranking in terms of tracks that I like to play, I think they are very important to have in a game. Because let's say, for example, we get to the end of Supercross and Charlie slides in my DMs and he's like, I want to prepare for outdoors, what should I do? I would point him in this direction straight away, because these are an absolutely perfect way to just get your head around Nationals, get the layouts of the tracks going as well. And one thing that I was noticing as I was riding all these different tracks, I was managing to one-shot a few of them in terms of recording these videos. Subscribe! Push the button! Do it now! Now! Do it! Push the button, do it, now, do it. One thing that I noticed about these tracks as I was recording them is I managed to one-shot one or two of them where I just literally loaded up the track, pressed the record button, run a lap, and it was just a really clean lap. And I think that kind of works really well in TFC's favour. It means that he's put a lot of time and effort to just get the scaling right, to get it flowing nicely, and this might sound super cringy, you might have no idea where I'm coming from, but I felt like I'd almost played the tracks before, just because I kind of envisioned watching back the real life riding, if that makes sense. In Millville, that comes up about halfway through all these tracks, there's quite a small tabletop, basically 2 corners after the start. And obviously I didn't know how long it was or how steep it was or anything, and I was coming to it on the first lap, but I shut off round about the place that I would expect the real life guy to shut off, and I downsided it absolutely perfectly. And that seemed to be a common occurrence across all these tracks. I'm not sure if I was just getting extremely lucky or maybe I was just having a good day, but that seemed to me how it felt. It felt like everything was planned out really well. And on some of the tracks as well, he's made some very interesting ruts. They're not here, there and everywhere. Obviously you've got some very standard, typical ruts in a lot of the corners on these tracks. But there was a bit of experimenting done here and there. There's one rut, I think on the very last corner before the finish on WW Ranch, which is in here as well, where the inside rut was kind of blown out and it led to the outside, and I love that stuff. I love tracks having their own unique characteristics. I'm all for it. I wish more track makers would kind of venture out of the box a little bit rather than just having kind of uniform ruts side by side. I think they should all have their own little like bumps, grooves, not be perfect 90 or 180 turns, and I think that's just the best way to make tracks really enjoyable. I don't know why Thunder Valley, or Lakewood, sorry, Colorado, that you're seeing on your screen right now is so pretty. I'm not sure what it was, it just seemed to be a lot prettier than all the others in my opinion, and maybe my reshade was just working really well with this track in particular. I'm not too sure. I found that nearly all, 1 or 2 I was a bit iffy with, but nearly every single texture that was used on these tracks I really liked. There was nothing that was too harsh on your eyes, even the darker, like this is one of the darkest dirts that you've got over all of the 12 rounds, and still it's not like you can't see anything. He's done a very good job on the textures and making everything really visible. Coming down everyone's favourite hill right here, where Eli completely destroyed his collarbone or his shoulder. I'm old. My memory's not what it should be. But even round Thunder Valley, this is probably one of my favourite ones, by the way. I was really vibing with Thunder Valley. And I think a lot of the tracks, it's odd because I was trying to blank my mind out and not think of other versions of these tracks that I've played in the past. So obviously the aerial version of Thunder Valley is from a completely different year, first of all, so the layout is completely different, and not only that, it's a different track maker as well, so all the bumps are going to be different, the ruts are going to be different, and it was quite difficult sometimes to not think of them tracks that I've already played, and because I was coming up to some of these jumps and I was constantly having to glance up at the top right of my screen looking at my track map to see just where the track does go next. And I feel like I don't think everyone's going to have that problem. It's just me, where I've spent so much time on those aerial tracks. Kept that 360 in, by the way, for the boys, for the fans. I thought, why not? May as well keep the lap alive. I mean, as I said, they're not all the most perfect of laps. You see me running through a few SpongeBobs, throwing a bloody Kiss of Death or a Superman, whichever move that one was, up in the air, just having fun with it. And I was genuinely sad when I got to the end of round 12. I was like, oh, I can't do any more discovering now. WW Ranch. Jacksonville, not WW Ranch. This is really good. I would even go as far to say this rivals Kel's WW Ranch that he released not that long ago. This was a one take for me, so I just gelled with the track really well. This is the first lap that I rode on it. The ruts are lovely, the jumps are lovely. This particular layout, I really do enjoy. I want to say this is the 2021 layout, either 2020 or 2021. I want to say 2020, only because I think this is the one where I think it was Derek Drake was like leading in one of the 250 races and absolutely tucked his front end and boarded himself after the rollers. I want to say this was this one, and this is also when I think Alex Martin done a Troll Train episode around here as well at one point. But yeah, I really like this layout. I think it's a really fun track. One thing that was kind of consistent across all of TFC's tracks, even with other tracks that he's made in the past, and not just these 12 that you're seeing here in this video, is they're all very fast. If you can keep your speed up and just carry the corners as nice as you can, they're always very quick ones. I'd be very interested to see how these play after maybe like a 20-minute moto. Very interested to see what he's done with the soil layers and how the road forms. I think that will probably add a lot more character to these tracks because, like I said earlier, they are on the easier side. They are meant to be that way. They're specifically designed that way. They're not meant to be like the aerial tracks where you're holding on for dear life. Look at this very accidental switch over the split lane there. I have no idea how Pivoso didn't just explode my front end, but we take it. And that rut right there that I went through, that is the one I was talking about, where the inside's just completely blown. It leads all the way to the outside. And then I was coming around to the left here, and I did expect to see this hump have a disgusting kicker on it, but he's saved us. He's kept it nice and easy to jump over, so it's all okay. It's no problem at all. On to Mount Morris, which is... I can't even remember the name off my head. It's not Muddy Creek, is it? I don't think it is. It's going to be really embarrassing now. High Point. High Point, that's the one. It's not High Point, it's Mount Morris. Through these rollers, really lovely, really flowy. Obviously, there's a lot of elevation changes on these various Nationals rounds that have no relation to any series at all. And one thing that happened now and then in the aerial tracks is you'd get a lot of those really funky uphill front wheel wobble Pivoso physics. Now, I think that only happened to me twice across every single one of these tracks. So I'm not sure if it's like a lucky thing, or if it's just the track's been built in the perfect way by accident, or if he's intentionally found the perfect angle you can go up before the bike starts getting all funky. But there were some steep hills on these tracks that I was really shocked how well the bike handled up it. So massive props to TFC if he's taken all that into account. And that left-handed rut right there was very nice, very sexy. Nice big uphill double here, and the whole thing it flows together nicely. It makes sense, and I can't speak fond enough of how much I enjoyed these. And I would go as far to say, now, they're never ever going to be top of every single server. All you're going to see from now on are TFC tracks, for the sole reason of it is paid content. And obviously you've got that massive divide in the bikes community on if you should or shouldn't pay. I'm of the mindset now of, if you like a look of the track, go and buy it. I can't tell you how to spend your money. If you don't like the look of the track, don't buy it. Stick to the free ones on MXB mods. My personal opinion is I do think this is worth the money, especially for those beginner/intermediate level riders. If you are quote-unquote pro in this game, then maybe not. I'm not too sure. It all depends how they develop after a long moto with the Erode. You'll probably see some fun races on them dotted about here and there. I'm not sure if you'll see anything proper and serious, and I think part of the reason that the FC kind of went for this style where it's more amateur day-ish, like kind of less banners and like loads and loads of objects all over the place. I think it's due to the time that they were due to be released as well. Obviously, you've got to think about this 2023 season that's coming up. We've got Stone Rider doing the Supercross tracks for the entire season. We've got TFC doing the 2023, I believe it's TFC, doing the 2023 AMA Outdoors tracks, not related to AMA. And then we've got JV doing like 17 or something, like a stupid amount of like GP rounds. So we've got so much content coming our way. It's actually crazy. Like, we're going to be so overwhelmed with tracks. So I think that's part of the reason why these have been released now as they are. And I can't hate on it whatsoever. I think that's a very smart decision. I think if it was a case of he waited till next off-season, for example, to release them all, then it's almost like, what's the point? We'll have the 23 tracks by then. People might not necessarily want to play some of the older layouts of these tracks, and I think it was the smart thing to do overall. I definitely back it, because now I feel like everyone's going to get some nice enjoyment out of these in between the Supercross season and the outdoor season, because it makes sense if people practice tracks from the same track creator. If obviously JV's making all these GP tracks that are going to be going on at the same time as Supercross, but they're not going to be built in the same way. Like, then JV and TFC have two very, very distinct styles of making tracks. Even in the most obvious things, like how ruts are built, for example. The rough tends to be a lot more jagged on JV tracks, although if I was a betting man, I would say that he's probably going to be toning down the roughness a little bit for the GP series, just to make it a bit more easy on everybody, just to... I think it just makes it less stressful than anything, because the pro guys, they'll get a fast clean lap in regardless of if they get like 20 minutes qualifying or an hour qualifying. But the people that are kind of just on the come up, just making that move into trying to race quote unquote professionally in this game, then they're going to be pulling their hair out all over the place. I can't imagine it will be too exciting for them. So I definitely think the easier tracks that develop more as the Erode grows is the way to go. I don't think loads and loads and loads of pre-made rough after the Beta 18C update is the best move anymore. And we're here on... can you believe, by the way, because I am not from America and I know very limited counties or states or whatever it may be in America, for the longest time, whenever I saw the word Buchanan, I always thought it was pronounced Buchanan. And I know that you are all cringing, the Americans watching that right now, and it wasn't until very, very recently, watching the MX of Nations, when I heard the commentators say Buchanan, Michigan, and I was like, yeah, that makes more sense. I've heard Buchanan before. Why did I think it was pronounced like that? So there's a little fun fact for you, a little bit of a random one. This Red Bull one, I thought it felt very, very flat. I feel like there could have been like just one or two ruts in the corners would have made it like a lot better than it was. I think out of every single of those 12 rounds, I think the Red Bud is probably at the bottom of the list for me, unfortunately. I mean, one of them's got to fill that spot. Millville, big old Mount Martin, that's not related to Mount Martin at all. It's Millville the location, not Millville the track. Take note. This one took me the longest to get a good lap on. This is actually, I think it's the hardest one out of all of them. It was very, very rough in some spots. The ruts coming out some of the corners, they've got some hooks in them as you exit, which from a realism standpoint, really appreciate. Really good, because you always see the ruts getting really deep hooks when you're watching the races around here. So it obviously makes sense. Or from an MX bike standpoint and the MX bike's physics, if you have to like really sharply adjust your lean angle in a rut whilst you're already leant over, it can cause the bike to do some weird things like standing it up or just tucking the front end. So it was very difficult in that regards. I found myself, I ended up taking a lot more outsides than I usually would like, just to make my life a bit easier. but I'm sure given more time, maybe half hour or an hour, whatever it may be, I probably could have quite comfortably learnt the lines. So the inside line at the bottom of this corner has a really sharp hook coming out of it, and 2 laps in a row I was on a really good lap, got to that point and just absolutely destroyed myself. And I mean, I even made a mistake on this lap, but kept that in because I got fed up of trying at that point. That rut there was really lovely. Like, it had like some ups and downs, some waves into it. It wasn't just a nice smooth flat line, and even though it was, I think, the most difficult one, it was really, really satisfying. I did really enjoy it. I've not got any negatives about any of the jumps on any of these tracks. I think the jump faces are built really nicely. You can usually throw a pretty flat off the TFC jumps, and that was the first time hitting that finish line. I cut that there so you didn't see my pain and suffering. Moving on to Washougal, the location Washougal, not the track Washougal. I was hoping that this one was going to be a banger, and I think he's done a very, very good job. Now, for those of you that don't know, I want to say the first maybe 100 or so hours of me playing MX bikes were all on Washougal, so I had high hopes for this. That Washougal, or Washington, sorry, on the stock one, holds a very, very special place in my heart, and I'm very, very glad that TFC done it some justice. I wish, for example, in these tight S corners, I wish the bikes on this game weren't so funky when it comes to switching direction really, really quickly, because the front end gets so loose it can get a little bit wild, but we managed to make it work. It wasn't too bad. And then I have a complaint for the real life track. Now, this triple I love, but this jump right here, I don't know why they don't just change it. I know that it's been like a jump into sand some years. Just make it another table or like a nice step up or something like that. I feel like it really does ruin the flow for the whole track. And if any of you have been lucky enough to ride at Washougal in real life, do you share that same opinion? Do you think that jump's okay? I can't imagine how god-awful it must feel going over that when you've got your arms are pumped up towards the end of the moto, you're just slamming into the sand or whatever the layout might be at the moment. I'm quite a big fan of this layout of Washougal. I was trying, like I said earlier, in a lot of these corners I was really having to get the old layouts out of my head from the tracks that I played previously, because as I say, I've spent a good 100 hours plus on the stock one on MX bikes. Even these corners here, I was like in the same gear I usually would be, and I was kind of taking the same line, even though the ruts were completely different. Here, the first lap I'd done around this track, I'd kind of hugged the inside, thinking that there was going to be a nice sharp inside rut, and it's just for part of the fun, I think, learning all these different tracks. This one as well was a very, very pretty one. I think this one and Thunder Valley are two of the best looking. I think it's because they feel the most full. Well, one thing as well that Washougal was about to enter, we're about to go on to the next track, but with Washougal, something that he done an amazing job on that I just remembered to mention is it's very, very difficult to see in the shadowy sections, which some people I know are going to completely cry about. I love it because every single time you watch a Washougal race on TV, the commentators at some point throughout the entire day, whether it's qualifying, whether it's Moto 1, Moto 2, they will mention how difficult it is going in and out of the shadows and how difficult it is to see all the different ruts. So massive shout out for him for actually making it difficult. Again, if that was an intentional thing, massive props on your behalf for the attention to detail. If it wasn't so intentional and it's just happened that way, then we love a happy accident, as Bob Ross would say. We don't make mistakes, we always make happy accidents. On to Unidilla. Now, when do I want to say this? I'll say this now, it doesn't matter anyway. I made a video earlier today, before these tracks released, of my top 20 MX tracks in MX bikes, and the aerial Unidilla was in there. So if you don't see any of these tracks in that list, I think that video goes up in like a day or two's time. Do not panic. I still rate these tracks very, very highly. They just didn't make the list because they didn't exist when the list was made. So I'm obviously going to have to make... No, I can't make another one because it's still technically 2022 when I'm recording this. It's fine. I digress. I'm sure TFC won't mind. But yeah, Unidilla, really fun track. I always love this track no matter what the layout is, or usually regardless of who the track creator is as well. I like it in MX Sim, I like it in MX Bikes. There's a Track AR version as well that's in the works, which I'm quite looking forwards to whenever it might be finished. But it's, yeah, just really, really fun track. First lap round, I sent this jump right here because I thought it was still a double. I thought it was like, oh, go inside, roll it, go outside, send it, and I just slammed into the face of the hill. It was so funny. I was like, well, probably should have rolled that and been a bit more careful. Should have gone for the old rum style of actually easing my way into a track rather than just trying to send it pinned all the time. And I just kind of want to reiterate, so this version of Untitled, for example, compared to the aerial one, it's a lot easier. Like, the ruts are nice and smooth, the jumps are really smooth, there's no like kickers here and there, no super rough stuff. So if you are looking and you are a beginner and you want to kind of get into the harder tracks without throwing yourself in right at the deep end, give these ones a shot. I don't think you'll regret it at all. I think on the shop, I bought the bundle. I think the bundle was $12, I want to say. Bear with me 2 seconds while I look across onto my other monitor. Yeah, so it was $12 for all 12 rounds. Or if you want to buy them individually, it's $1.50. So what's that? 10 times is 15, 2 times is free. So it's either 18 if you buy them individually or 12 as a bundle. So I think that's a pretty good deal. I like how the shop are doing bundles. It kind of saves me a little bit of money and saves you guys some as well if you want to take the plunge and buy all of them. Or that's kind of why I do these videos as well. If you kind of see 1, 2 or maybe 3 in here that you particularly like, that you want to pick out, then you have the availability to do so as well. And I'm not even sure if I'm allowed to say this, but I'm not sure how common knowledge it is. But back when I very started playing this game, towards the very back end of 2020, there was rumours that apparently like these tracks that you see here, they were meant to be genuine DLC for MX bikes, like in talks with Barboso as well. And then obviously they real life got in the way of TFC being able to build them as quick as he would like to, and they got left for a while, and then that kind of all fizzled out. But I just thought that was really interesting. So in one way or another, it has ended up becoming DLC, which I think is really cool. Again, probably another reason why they are all locations rather than track names. But Budds Creek, Mechanicsville, I've loved every single Budds Creek track I've ever played, again, regardless of the game. I haven't actually played the aerial version of this because I kind of stopped the season during it. So I'm glad that I've got to play one Budds Creek at least, and I really enjoyed this one that TFC made. It was really enjoyable. And then moving on to the 12th and final round here, never knew that it was called it was at Crawfordsville. I've just always treated it as Iron Man, Indiana. I thought it would be called Indiana, but I hope it's Indiana. I hope I'm not making myself look like an idiot. But we've got the big old Godzilla jump right here, whatever it's called. Absolutely big boy, big sender jump, nice smooth inside rut, and then I love this step down as well. And this track, the attention to detail in this track in particular, I was a little bit of a fanboy of. I do like my weird and like very minute details, and you've probably already missed it by now because I'm saying this after the fact. Where he's put the tear-offs laying on the ground is really good. Like, obviously people pull their tear-offs in the air, the tear-offs are going to land on top or on the landing of jumps. If I was making a track, that probably wouldn't have even crossed my mind. I'd just be like, yeah, just whack it in this rut, in this corner, whack it over these braking bumps into this, and in places that just don't make sense, but I wouldn't even think about that in the track making process. So it's a testament to TFC's experience as well as his attention to detail. And I think in terms of track creators, if you was to bundle every single track creator together on this game, in terms of influence and impact on the community, you could very well argue that TFC is at the very top of the pile, from the amount of years he's been doing it, from all the guides he's been putting out as well over the years that a lot of people I know watch when they first start getting into track building. It's just really impressive stuff. So I'm very grateful that these have come out. Again, I didn't think the day would ever come, but finally it had. And I just wanted to thank you guys for sticking around to the end of the video if you had done. Please do drop a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you're new. I'd really appreciate it. Let's make 2023 an amazing one, and it all starts with you guys. Thank you for all the support recently, and let's just keep it going. I'm going to try and upload every single day of 2023, unless something major happens, if I get hit by a car, God forbid. And I'm going to love you and leave you. Enjoy this amazing uphill jump that I'm about to hit. Peace.